Identity politics refers to the people of a religion, race, or social background forming exclusive alliances for political agendas and wider cultural movements. Identity politics is not inherently immoral, but by practicing it, you are making a dichotomy, your personal identity versus the enemy. The significant difference between identity politics and, let's say, regular politics is that this form of politics is rooted in personal identity. Therefore, disagreements take on a whole new levels. When you disagree with a Nazi, for example, you're not simply disagreeing with them on social policy. You're also disagreeing with who they are as a person. And when you're disagreeing with Black Lives Matter members, they think you're disagreeing with who they are as a person in the deepest, most fundamental sense. This type of thinking, at its roots, goes back to Karl Marx. I'm Jay Feza from the Rebel.media, and allow me to remind you, those on the right and those on the left, where identity politics tends to take people. At the root of Marxist thinking is identity politics. In Marx's time, it was the idea of class struggle between the bourgeoisie, or owners, versus the proletariat, or workers. Karl Marx himself, though not being a staunch advocate of war, believed violence was the way for the proletariat to gain power in a capitalist society run by the owners. The obvious problem with Marxist identity-based thinking is that in a free market where individual liberty is protected, even the workers have the power to uplift themselves from working poverty if they possess the innovation and drive it takes to succeed. The American dream, a house, a partner, a car, a dog, is very difficult to achieve. But after all is said and done, a black man has every opportunity to achieve the American dream as a white man does, and vice versa. In this case, the flaw in Marxist thought is that in capitalism, individual wealth changes. Marxist thought, specifically on identity politics, created the most destructive states in contemporary history, Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. Both these states took Marxist thinking based around identity politics and applied it to their own delusional agenda, killing millions of people. And both these states started off as movements similar to what we see in today's political discourse. Nazis, or German National Socialists, applied Marxist identity politics to the Jewish question. Nazis believed Aryans to be the superior but oppressed race. Nazis viewed Jews as the oppressors. Jews killed Jesus. Jews are disproportionately the head of major banks and corporations. Ergo, Jews had to be the oppressors. Of course, we all know what became of them. Gypsies, blacks, gays, and of course Jews too were killed in the Holocaust. 6 million in total were starved to death, shot, or gassed during World War II. And of course, even to this day, we have people so possessed by Nazism, a form of identity politics, that they deny that the Holocaust ever happened, or worse, they try to justify it. In the Soviet Union, identity politics had less of an ethnic angle. It was more in line with the traditional Marxist thinking of owner class versus the working class. The Soviet Union applied Marxist identity politics to Slavic workers, mostly farmers of various Eastern European nation states. As well as enslaving their own people in workers' camps, the Soviet Union relocated millions of pounds of food out of East and Central Europe, slowly starving about half an entire continent. 50 to 60 million people died while the Soviets were in power from either working to death or starvation. And as the Soviets grew in power, they influenced other regimes in China and Korea. In China alone, over 45 million people died as the Chinese communists sought to overthrow the owner class, drive out the nationalists, and rewrite Chinese history. And of course, we have people so possessed by this form of identity politics that they argued, that's not real communism, my communism works. And of course, so many young people across the West, like Antifa, are still violently in support of communism, even after we found out its horrors and taught these delusional children what communism does. In total, over 100 million people in the 20th century died solely because of Marxist identity politics. Though Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union fell, Marxist thinking on identity politics lives on in the social and cultural aspects of our political discourse. It never really went away. Marxist thinking on identity politics just morphed from wealth inequality to now identity-based politics based solely on racial grounds. This form of identity politics is far worse than identity politics based on wealth inequality because there's no escaping racial identity politics. According to SJWs, you're black, therefore you're forever being oppressed. You're a woman, therefore you're forever being oppressed. Who you are as a person is being attacked, so therefore you must fight back, even violently sometimes. Likewise, according to some elements of the alt-right movement, the white nationalist elements particularly, if you're white, You therefore are being oppressed by the Jews or Muslims or multiculturalism or whatever. Instead of honestly addressing these issues through a sharpened political mind, these people, the people who use identity politics, see political disagreements as an attack on who they are on the deepest fundamental sense. This is my warning to you, alt-righters and SJWs. When you partake in identity politics, you're playing with fire. Think about your beliefs and ideas. Think about the personal divisions they cause. What are your ideal worlds, Richard Spencer or Yusra Khogali? What do you have to do in order to achieve that ideal world? What are you willing to do? What are your followers willing to do? Now think about Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. I'm Jay Feza from the Rebel.media. If you enjoyed the video and like the content that I provide, like and subscribe to the Rebel.media.